Good evening, members. Welcome to Castle Florence Cabinet meeting. Members, we're not expecting a fire drill this evening, so if the fire alarm does go off during the meeting, please leave immediately by the nearest emergency exit and gather outside Runnymede Hall. Cabinet members, please introduce yourself as listed on the agenda, starting with Councillor Warren Gibson.
Thank you, Leader. Evening, everybody. Evening, members. I'm Councillor Warren Gibson, Deputy Leader of the Council, and I'm Cabinet Member for Devolution and Local Government Reorganisation.
I'm Councillor Tim Copsey, Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning.
Councillor Savage, are you?
Councillor Russ Savage, I'm the Cabinet Member for People and Community. Sorry, I didn't have the agenda up.
Oh, sorry.
Apologies. Councillor Rob Lillis, Cabinet Member for Health, Wellbeing and Housing. And good evening, everyone.
Evening, everyone. Councillor Tom Gibson, Cabinet Member, if I can get my words out, for Special Projects and Assets. Going well this evening, isn't it?
Evening, Cabinet Member for Resources, Councillor Steve Mountford.
Good evening, members. Councillor Michael Fuller, Cabinet Member for Environment.
Thank you, members. Members, have we any apologies?
We have apologies from Councillor Palmer.
Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 2, declaration of interest. Members, do you have any interest to declare? No? No interest. Agenda item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of January 2025. Members, is it okay I sign the minutes as a true reflection of the previous meeting? Thank you very much. Agenda item 4, Waste and Recycling Vehicle Workshop. Members, we have a report set out the options for maintenance of the Council's waste and recycling fleet. Councillor Fuller, could you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'm pleased to introduce this. Firstly, in doing so, I'd like to give my thanks to the Assistant Director of Waste and Recycling, Terry Prince, for the excellent work that he's carried out and the background to this report and actually bringing it to the point where we can bring this report forward to Cabinet this evening. It is a very lengthy report, and no doubt you will have had time to go through. I will point out that in the appendixes on section 9.6, and there's a couple of pages beyond, there is an imprint of draft across the pages. That is an error. This is not the draft, this is the real deal, and they will be draft imprint will be removed. Members, I would just like to quickly go through, because we have got a lot of business this evening to get through, so I want to make sure that we cover at least the base points. I'm just going to go through the recommendations, and then I will give a little bit of summary after that, which just sort of explains the thinking behind it. So there are four recommendations: to note the business case and approve option 5 if recommendation above 1 is approved; to agree the freehold purchase of the units 29 to 31 in Roscommon Way, Canby Island, Essex, the new site, for 1.7 million, and to delegate authority to the Director of Commercial and Assets and the Section 151 officer in consultation with the portfolio holder for environment and portfolio holder for special projects and assets, the leader and the deputy leader, to complete the purchase subject to satisfactory completion of due diligence as set out in the business case, item 4.2. Also to agree payment of purchase fees, stamp duty, due diligence fees, buildings, adaptation and fit out, plus related fees as are necessary up to £969,000, and to delegate authority to the Director of Commercial and Assets and to the Section 151 officer in consultation with the portfolio holder for environment, special projects and the leader and deputy leader to scope, procure and award contracts for such works, and to create a new capital scheme within the general fund for the purchase fees, due diligence fees, building adaptation, fit out costs, plus any of those related fees, with the scheme approval for 2.669 million, 2024-25, payments approval of 1.812 million, and 2025-26 payments approval of 857,500. Okay, so that's what you're asked to agree this evening, but there is a background to this, and I'd just like to run through that. The council services its waste and recycling fleet at its workshop on Point Road, Industrial Estate, Canvey Island, and the council employs 3 staff to service the vehicles at the workshop, and that workshop currently is leased. The workshop is only big enough for maintenance to be carried out on 1 heavy goods vehicle at a time, which creates logistical problems. The new facility, which is proposed, will enable 2 HGV vehicles to be worked on at a time. The current workshop has limited headroom, which means that nationally standard-sized fleet vehicles will not fit. They actually can't get into the building. The result of which is for the past 15 years, believe it or not, the council has had to pay a premium for adapted vehicles, which is a significant additional cost to the service. And the limited space within the workshop means that staff cannot carry out brake testing, which is a legal requirement from April 2025, on site. So vehicles will have to be sent to a private workshop for this legislative requirement to be dealt with at a further additional cost. So the purchase of the new facility future-proofs the waste and recycling service from a maintenance and repair perspective, building resilience ahead of forthcoming containerised options, which will be presented to Cabinet later in the year. So members, I just ask you to agree that those proposals and pass you back to the Leader. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Members, are there any questions? No questions. Members, there are 4 recommendations set out in paragraph 3.1 of the report. Are you in agreement that we take these all together? Thank you. I will move the recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gibbs?
Yeah, I will second that, Leader.
Thank you. Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you, members. Agenda item 5, the new CCTV network for the Borough. We have a report providing an update on the progress following the Council's successful grant application to the Police and Fire and Crime Commissioner for a new CCTV network in the Borough. Councillor Savage, could you introduce your item?
Good evening, everyone. So following on from the successful bid back in March of 2024, 26th of March 2024, in partnership with Southend City Council, we submitted the application for funding to upgrade and expand the Council's very out-of-date CCTV provision through the PFCC's local Safer Streets Fund. So this was the third tranche of funding, the first time that this council would ever, under this administration, looked to secure those funds. Our application was approved and a grant of £1,041,000 was awarded to the council in December of 2024. Upon signing the funding agreement, the grant is payable in 4 instalments of £260,380, with the council poised to make claims for December just past and March 2025 instalments now, which will allow the officers to progress the work on this project. The project will deliver an upgrade and expansion of our CCTV infrastructure and will see the strategic placement of over 135 new cameras, all Wi-Fi enabled, in areas prone to antisocial behaviour and violence. The estimated cost of those cameras with installation is £1,027,000, so there's a little bit of cash over the top there if extra units are needed. What we're intending to do is have a member briefing, share with you the locations that are currently mapped out. This was in partnership with Essex Police. We did a lot of work with the police to actually make sure that they had cameras where they thought they needed them as well. But we do want to make sure that the borough-wide members have an opportunity to share their thoughts on the location of those cameras. It's the intention of the council to partner with Southend City Council, who will provide day-to-day monitoring and general management of the cameras from the Southend CCTV. I'll make it clear that that is 24 hours, so these will be monitored, throughout the day, every week, every year. Once fully operational, designated officers across the Community Safety Partnership with Southend City Council and Castle Point Borough Council will have the ability to remotely monitor these and record and respond to footage in real time, providing a deterrent to crime and providing valuable, usable evidence for both the council and police colleagues, which will make our communities safer. I just want to give you a brief breakdown of the estimated costs because I think it's important to understand our element of the payments towards this. So the annual maintenance of these is £38,700, monitoring is £117,000, a management fee of £25,200 is chargeable, and that is approximately £181,500. However, this was a match funding scheme, and our element of that funding was £180,000. So in essence, it's a win-win for us. The council is working with Southend City Council and wider partners to finalise the camera locations, as I've said previously, and appropriate service level agreements which will underpin the project. These will be brought to June Cabinet for further considerations. So in the interim, we're seeking member approval to agree the terms of the grant funding with the PFCC and instruct officers to complete the negotiations and the due diligence. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Members, any questions? No questions. Can I just say that I think this is an amazing project to go forward with. The one thing this administration has always said one of our top priorities was community safety, and I think this is going to make such a big difference. It's going to help the police, and I know it will help making our community safer for people to live and work. Members, there are 3 recommendations set out in paragraph 3.1 of the report. Are you agreed that I take these all together? I will move the recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gibson. Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you very much, members. Agenda item 6, request for discretionary disabled facilities grant. We have a report providing details of request of a disabled facilities grant for a child residing living within the borough. Councillor Lillis, could you please introduce this item?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Cabinet, the Council has received a DFG recommendation for the child of borough residence child B. This was provided by an occupational therapist who recommended works which are required to enable child B to live safely and as independently as possible in their own home. As these costs of these works is forecast to exceed the mandatory limit of £30,000, an additional discretionary grant is being requested to top up the mandatory grant. By way of some background, Environmental Health Services received an OT referral on behalf of child B after it had been identified that they were experiencing the following difficulties: accessing first floor essential facilities, managing personal care needs with the assistance of a carer, and accessing the home while seated within a wheelchair. The OT recommended that the following works are considered necessary and appropriate: installation of a wheelchair through floor lift from the lounge to the front upstairs bedroom, removal of the bath, installing a graded shower room with sliding door access, and the installation of a front ramped access and widening of the front door and removal/widening of internal porch door to an arch. At the request of the parents of child B, the case was forwarded to the council's nominated delivery partner, a reminder that's Epping District Council, to compile the necessary documentation required as part of the grant application process. The home of child B was surveyed, technical drawings completed, and suitable contractors engaged to obtain quotes for the works. The cheapest acceptable of the 3 quotes is set out before you. Subject to eligibility criteria being met, the council is legally required to approve properly made applications for DFG up to £30,000. The Castle Point Disabled Facilities Grants Policy allows for a discretionary top-up of up to £30,000 in addition to the mandatory award of £30,000, subject to the circumstances meeting the relevant criteria described in the policy, which includes seeking alternative sources of funding where practicable to do so. The family of child B is planning to undertake building works as set out before you. The total cost of the DFG works amount to £57,879.75. After the mandatory £30,000 grant has been awarded, this will leave £27,879.75. However, with works of this type and extent, the need to provide contingency for unforeseen works is industry standard, so it is recommended that authorisation of up to £30,000 is approved to ensure that any reasonable unforeseen works can be covered within the grant. The works applied for are considered necessary and appropriate to meet the needs of child B and are reasonable and practicable considering the age and condition of the building. Of the three options before you this evening, option 1 is recommended due to the necessity for the works to be completed, to demonstrable benefits provided to child B, a disabled person, and the need to ensure that the works are undertaken in a timely manner with a minimum risk of delay or disruption for child B and their parents. Further financial information on the current expenditure for the year to date on such grants and on the amount of grant funding available is provided in the reports before you. Cabinet, in response to a recent request at a Cabinet briefing that members have a briefing note on disabled facilities grants in order that they can promote the take-up and spending of the money for some of our most vulnerable residents, I am very pleased to inform you that such a note will soon be included in the members' e-brief, and thought is presently being put into the possible creation of a leaflet. Finally, I would like to thank the Assistant Director, Environmental Health, Licensing and Community, and the Environmental Health Officers for their good work on this grant application and on the comms work I've just mentioned, and I take this opportunity on behalf of all those here present to wish child B and his or her parents all the very best for the future. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lillis. And I'm sure we all do there. Members, are there any comments or questions? No. Members, there are two recommendations set out in paragraph 3.1. Can we take these together? I will move the recommendations. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Leader.
Is that agreed then, members? Thank you, members. Agenda item 7, Building Control Enforcement Policy. Next is a report to update on the inspection of the Council's building control function by the Building Safety Regulator. Councillor Copsey, could you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Leader. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I bring before you an important report which sets out the case for the adoption of a building control enforcement policy and provides an update on our response to the Building Safety Regulator's recent inspection of our building control service. As many of you will be aware, building safety has never been more in the spotlight, particularly following the introduction of the Building Safety Act 2022. This Act introduced a stronger regulatory framework to ensure local authorities and other building control bodies are operating to the highest standards in safeguarding the health, safety and welfare of people in and around buildings. In November 2024, we were notified that our building control function would be inspected by the Building Safety Regulator under Section 58Z8 of the Building Act 1984. This was part of the national audit programme that will see all local authority building control bodies inspected over time. Our inspection took place in December 2024, with officers engaging fully in the process and taking immediate steps to address the issues identified. The need for this policy follows an inspection by the Building Safety Regulator, which assessed our compliance with operational standard rules. This audit, while routine, has provided us with a valuable opportunity to strengthen our processes and reaffirm our commitment to building safety. Following the inspection, the regulator issued a letter of contravention, setting out areas where improvements are needed. While the findings were at the lower end of the enforcement scale, it is crucial that we act swiftly to ensure full compliance and maintain our high standards. The key requirement identified was the need for a building control enforcement policy. This will formalise our approach to regulatory intervention, ensuring transparency, consistency and a risk-based approach to enforcement. The report before you recommends the adoption of the ISO 9001-2015 LABC Quality Management System Enforcement Policy as an interim measure, allowing us to comply with regulatory requirements while developing a bespoke policy tailored to our council. In addition to this, the action plan set out in Appendix 3, which sets out how we will respond to all the regulators' recommendation, has been progressing rapidly. I am pleased to report that since the publication of this report, 3 additional actions, items 5, 7 and 8, have already been actioned. This demonstrates the pace and commitment of our officers in responding to the inspection's findings, ensuring that we meet and exceed the expectations set by the regulator. Furthermore, if the recommendations of this report are agreed upon tonight, we will also complete a further action within the action plan, marking another step towards full compliance ahead of the 25th April 2025 response deadline set by the regulator. Adopting this policy is not just about meeting regulatory requirements. It is about ensuring the health, safety and well-being of people in and around buildings in our borough. It also reinforces our commitment to transparency, accountability and best practice in building control. I therefore urge Cabinet to support the recommendations in this report, ensuring we take decisive action to enhance our building control service and continue delivering the highest standards for our residents and businesses. I would also highlight that an update to the progress on the action plan will be presented to Cabinet in April for my colleagues' information, ahead of the deadline to respond on the 25th of April. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Copsey. Members, any questions? No questions. Members, is the letter received from the Building Safety Regulator and the Council's action plan noted? I will move the recommendation to approve the building control enforcement policy set out in Apex 1. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Leader. I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Is that agreed, members? Thank you, members. Agenda item 8, the 2023-24 Provisional Outturn. We have before us an update on the 2023-24 financial year on the General Fund and Housing Revenue Account. Councillor Mansfield, could you please introduce the item?
Thank you, Chair. Item 8 for the Provisional Outturn. The draft statement of accounts for 23-24 were published in January and will be presented at the Audit and Governance Committee next week on the 27th of February. There was a national backlog of accounts which has now been cleared, and future years will be presented much sooner after the financial year has ended going forward. The variances shown in the report are after allowing for all carry forwards approved by the Section 151 officer and appropriations to earmark reserves for approval by Cabinet tonight. Paragraph 9 of the report shows the proposed appropriations, and these represent prudent financial management. The significant variances for each service area are explained within the report, and so I do not propose to go through them in detail now. As would be expected, any longer-term impacts have been factored into the budget process. Our financial regulations state that overspend in service areas by default will carry forward into the following year. However, given the overall underspend position in the General Fund, Cabinet are asked to approve the overspending areas are offset against the underspend, and this is the reason on recommendation 7. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Mumford. Members, are there any comments or questions? No? Members, do you note the recommendations in 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 6 set out in paragraph 3.1 of the report? I will move recommendations 5 and 7 set out in paragraph 3.1 of the report. Do I have a seconder?
Leader, I'll second that.
Can we take those together? Members, is that agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item 9, Housing Revenue Account 25-26, Rent Levels, Revenue Budget and Capital Plan. Next, we have a report seeking the Cabinet's approval on proposed rent levels for 2025-2026, HRA revenue budget for 2025 and 2026, and HRA capital plan for 2025 and 2026. Councillor Mumford, could you please introduce your item?
Thank you again. Taking into account decisions we've previously approved, previous cabinets on the HRA programme. So we've previously allocated 2.3 million revenue and 85,000 capital for remedial works. This budget process increases the capital investment by £850,000, which will deliver essential improvements to our properties and systems. These investments include £380,000 on fire safety improvements and £180,000 on new housing management system, which will improve the efficiency of the service and in the longer term provide visible benefits to our tenants. In acknowledgement of the current situation regarding our housing, I propose to freeze housing rent at the current levels for the next year. As my colleague Councillor Lillis has previously presented at Council, we are committed to making improvements required to bring our housing stock to the required standard. As you'll see in the report, there is an impact of not increasing the rent for this forthcoming year, but we must be open and fair to our residents, and freezing the rent for the next year at our current levels is the least we can do to demonstrate our commitment to our residents. Due to the significant investment in the service, whilst also freezing rent, a small reallocation of £75,000 from the HRA earmarked reserves back to the HRA General Reserve is required to keep the General Reserve above the minimum recommended level. This is a Cabinet decision and I submit the report to you for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mountford. Members, are there any comments or questions? Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I thank Councillor Mountford for his report and for proposing that there will be no rent increases in respect of social rents, affordable rents and garage rents for 25-26. Cabinet, you will all know that this is something we have debated a lot over the last few weeks. This is not a decision that we should take lightly. However, given the position that the housing service is presently in and the fact that we continue to live during a cost of living crisis, I feel that this is the right decision to take and I hope that it brings our tenants some relief. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Members, there are three recommendations set out in paragraph 3.1. Can we take these all together? Thank you. I will move the recommendations. Do I have a seconder?
Second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Is that agreed, members? Thank you, members. Agenda item 10, medium-term financial strategy for 2025-26 to 27 to 28. Finally, we have a report setting out proposals and recommendations for the Council's budget for 2025-2026 and a draft budget for 2 years after that. It also contains the annual review of the Council Tax Reduction Scheme, which affects Council tax base, and the annual procurement plan. Councillor Mountford, could you please introduce this item?
Thank you again, Chair. Report 10 for the MFTS. Details are included in this item and we will be discussing this at Council following Cabinet at 7 p.m. this evening. Unless there are any immediate questions, I present this for approval by Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Members, recommendations 3, 4, 5 are set out in paragraph 3.1 in the report. Are they noted? Members, I will move the recommendations 1, 2, 7 and 8 as set out in paragraph 3.1 of the report. Do I have a seconder?
Second it, Chair.
Can we take all these together, members? Is that agreed? Thank you. Finally, members, I move recommendation 7 that the Cabinet recommends to the Council that the ring fencing arrangements in respect of the Knightswick Shopping Centre imposed upon purchase of the centre is removed. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
Councillor Gibson. Is that agreed then, members? Agreed. Thank you then, members. That concludes the formal business of the meeting and I'll see you later on. Thank you very much.